Each different bubble of reality is true.
A galactic historian is a person that looks at all the lines of dramatic karma.
Nudge, nudge, it's the Holy Grail.
Improvise. Mysterious.
It's counter psychic intelligence.
Why is DNA farming of this star cluster so important?
Because we do manifest our reality. We do create our reality.
We are joined by Donnie. Donnie, are you there?
I am here.
Where are you calling from?
I'm just north of San Francisco.
Just north of San Francisco. Welcome to the show. What kind of questions do you want to start with?
Ooh, all right. So happy to be here. It's good to talk to you guys.
Thank you.
First thing I was going to ask is how many different species or races genetics are a part of my DNA?
A lot. 6,000, 7,000, 7,500.
Okay. And that's probably why every reading I hear you do, there's some seed or kernel in there that just seems to resonate and make sense with me. It's almost like I always feel the readings are about me. Do I share codes with so many?
No, you lived in all of their worlds.
So I'm listening to Soul Family in a lot of your audience?
No. Think of it like this. A long, long time ago, you needed a vacation, and you went to a world that's called a Disneyland world. And you met a whole bunch of really cool people there. And instead of staying on the Disneyland world, you all got together on the Disneyland bus and went to another world. That made a soul family. You decided, it's fun partying with these guys, but I'm going to move on. I'm going to go to the next version of Disneyland and meet a new group of people and a new group of people and a new group of people. And you had lived till the point you had lived into all the homeworlds of all those 7,000 plus races that are part of your DNA. Because ultimately you knew an ancient future you was going to incorporate a DNA skin suit that had not been invented yet that would have all of those particular formats incorporated into a DNA skin suit that a light body would become a DNA operator of.
Are the numbers you're telling me about me high, average? Is there such thing as an average?
No, there's no such thing as an average, but there are over 10,000 species that have invested their DNA into Earth because they are all looking to get something out of it, which is a full 7-color experiencing species. The lineage you have been born in has 7,000 of these 10,000 a part of it. Does that make it above average? Yes, that does. But it also puts you into a frequency that to get that, you had to have major experiences in some of the common 10 or 12 species that are in surface domination and control here. The Syrians, the Greys, the Lyrians, the Mirians, and all of the other ones that are here, the lizards, etc., etc. Those are the main separate planet time streams that are trying to manifest on the surface here to erase Earth eminent time and create another planet's eminent time here on our frequency. You have all of the eminent times of other worlds inside you, which makes you a time collector. Because you're a time collector, that means if you meet anyone else that doesn't have your source frequency of time, you can give it to them or update their clocks. So the rarity of you is you're the timekeeper, the time master. Like, every game's got a referee that's keeping time. So time masters or time key people like that, synchronicities are very easy for them to manifest if their spiritual hygiene is impeccable.
Right. I notice them go off the wall as soon as I get clean, and
exactly off the wall.
So already my mind can get overwhelmed with what you're saying.
Right. And if you understand that there's an agenda behind synchronicities, because there is at a higher level when you're manifesting them like that, if you take a high level of spiritual hygiene with a direct intent of having a soul family visitation and reunion in dream time, you will have a bigger understanding of what you should be doing here on surface Earth during the Grand Awakening.
Okay, so I ask for a soul family gathering in dream time.
Well, not just ask. You actually do it at a time where you're practicing heavy-duty spiritual hygiene for weeks in a row, and that's your manifest intention during that week, those many weeks.
Right.
You need to force this manifestation. And I use the word force because there's nothing else that can do other than bring it into your perspective, because it is not in your perspective now.
Right.
What other kind of questions do you have?
I'm wondering what percentage of worlds are free-willed?
You can't really rate that, because there are worlds that are half free will, half not free will. Okay. Or 3/4 free will and free for all on the other side. You can't rate it as a percentage.
So is
Our
it
world
on a planetary or a bigger level?
No, I'm talking even if you just go at the planetary level all throughout the universe, they're all different layers of free will. Each is a different frequency of sovereignty and assists the different beings there on their particular process. We here at Earth have already done the spiritual sovereignty path of millions of other worlds. To be here on Earth means you're the best of the best of the best of the last 25 million generations. If you're not ready, you're not here. Literally, everyone that's here, everyone that's listening on the call that thinks they aren't meant to be here, bullshit. You're here because you are the best of the best of the best of this universal generation.
Right.
And when you got 1 trillion geniuses that come together, there isn't anything they can figure out if they can share the common moral code of do no harm to any sentient kind.
So, where in my 9-body, 7-ray complex are my biggest blockages and deficiencies? And is it apparent what beliefs I'm holding to keep empowering these imbalances?
Kathy, do you wish to talk about the body?
Well, when I look at it, to me it seems like much more basic level stuff, in that right now I would say that your mind seems fuzzy. And it's not because it's like too much thoughts, but there's some sort of mist that's over you in some strange way. I couldn't really describe to you why it's there, but I'm sure that you could feel it. But because of this fuzziness, you find it very difficult to straighten yourself out, think about things in the long term, think about intergalactic things, everything. It's like you're walking through a haze. What I'd say is you really need to do something to clear your head a bit, whether it be go out, get some wind in your hair, or burn some lemongrass, tea tree, something. Do something that you can clear your head. And when you clear your head, you will find that the blockages that you think are there are not really there. It's more that you can't sense things now because of the mist.
That makes sense.
So I want to add a layer there. Sometimes in the truther industry, there's this flak storm, and I use the word flak like in the old World War II movies where anti-aircraft guns would shoot up shots into the air, and they'd all of a sudden make a big explosion, and if there were airplanes were flying through, they would get beat up. And they put up this flak of truth and disinformation every day, and you've been exposed to this too much layers of information, and your actual third eye is disconnecting from very powerful information that it's reading through the internet frequency. That's the haze. It's too much. It's information overload. And so many people don't realize how easy your world is overloaded, from the cell phone to the computer to the laptop to the television to work, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. For you making a dedicated day where there is no wireless, there's no technology, and it's caveman out on the land. It's really important that you remind yourself of that signature frequency of no technology, and not from a survivalist perspective, from the spiritual perspective of what it takes to connect to the land without the technology pulling your awareness away.
Right. I feel like I've practiced, the energy cleanliness, and I feel like I make strides, and I already feel so different than others, and I guess what I'm hearing is there's just more needed. There's just
it's for you. It's the creative muse that's going to get you past the plateau that you're in. You see, we must understand there's an infinite amount of karma for us to clean up if we want to.
Right.
And your soul got one of those contracts that has an indemnity clause in it that you will keep cleaning it up until you have the sovereign free will to stop yourself from cleaning it up.
That's the guilt.
That's the shame, blame, and guilt from the soul that had to be in war millions of years in a row.
Right, the codependent healer that I am. So.
Right. So what it is for you is you got to begin to seek the mystical experiences, and you need to list your mystical experiences that have previously happened and understand you have a bit of a callous nature to the mystical experiences now because you've had so many.
Right. Okay. Yeah. It's a surrender issue too. It's like I know that it's just going to take me, and in a good way.
Right.
But I feel myself holding it at arm's length.
Correct. And I think that one of the ways you can trigger yourself to go have multiple mystical experiences without the technology being the interface is to go on a set of pilgrimages to places of power. I know you're in San Francisco or outside of there. Sequoia National Forest is just, probably 5 hours from you, outside of Reno. And you can go into one of the most ancient caves down there called Crystal Cave. It's like an hour walk to get down there, and then like a 2-hour trip through these giant underground tunnels with crystal formations in them that will give you the underworld, hollow earth feeling again. And I think that's something you just need to have resonate in your frequency again is the deep underground living. There are many, many caves for you to go and explore if you should choose to do that. Carlsbad Cavern, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. That feels juicy because it kind of scares me, caves, but but yeah, the Algonquin network, that idea doesn't scare me. So, okay.
Well, you have relations to them, and one of the actual reasons you're living in the San Francisco area is at one point in time there was a massive immigration point to Hollow Earth there. But that area is closed off since the earthquake in San Francisco and the new sacred geometry system putting on it. But your homing beacon made sure you want to be in that area at that time, even though the gateway is not going to open. Now you must seek Plan B and Plan C and Plan E ways to get connection to the Hollow Earth or Garthan network again, and that's by getting underground. You need that signature frequency of being underground again, so you can dream in it.
Okay.
And probably feel the calmness of it, the grounding, the calm, the awe.
Right.
Because, you live around some very amazing things I can see, but just to have something that's spectacular, that's different, that reaches into your soul and says, you know, this is nature, this is wow. I think that experience would really bring you some calmness into your whole being, and also just that resonation that will help you understand things from a different perspective, I suppose, than where you're standing right now.
Yeah, because there's that word callousness comes up in my mind again. We almost get callous to beauty and nature being around here, and
Exactly.
yeah. So yeah, and it also resonates with when you say, you know, to make the sacred practice, you know, not just recreational,
Exactly.
but and so doing the cave work. Okay, that's
Think of it as a pilgrimage.
right.
Make
Right.
that word mean something to you, so that it's a sacred journey, and the journeys to what does it take for me to let go of the world long enough just so I can experience the bubble reality of this cave and have only share positive love exchange energies by me creating sacred space there.
That's cool. I wanted to lead trips of people to Asia, and I could look at caves and stuff there too. And
Oh yeah, there's a
Definitely.
huge group of people that go to Asia for that.
yeah, cool. Okay, can I ask another question?
Sure.
Why did the movie Back to the Future trip me out so much when I watched that way back when I was 14? Like, I remember laying in bed, spending the night at a friend's house the night we saw it, and I just couldn't get over it. I don't know what it was. And then when I hear you talking about timelines and leapfrogging, it twists my mind up, and it almost makes me feel like a sense of futility. Like, well, if they can mess with me on that level, so I'm wondering, you mentioned time earlier, so I want to, I guess, know how that applies to me. And are the contract revocations enough to protect us from those incursions?
Contract revocations are by design to trigger the pericardium to activate the most basic form of sacred space. Before you are literally a heart or a fetus, there's a sperm and an egg that come together. Once the sperm and egg come together, there's this shell around it, and that's the initial pericardium that allows the mystical process of the heart to go through the co-creational process between male and female. And when the contract revocation, they said, triggers the pericardium, which is that original thing that gave you your bubble of reality to create sacred space, so the heart can fill in sacred space at the most densest of layers, so more and more of the soul can come in.
And so in those safe spaces, is there any reason to have fear about timeline stuff affecting me, or is that my safety right there being in that?
That's your safety right there. And the key is doubt. By letting doubt into your sacred space, you are instantly manifesting it. Once you're in that sacred space, you have to fill it up with the density of your being. That's the responsibility of the sovereign soul spark manifesting itself into the DNA skin suit. So when you hear words like you're back in the fetus in mother's womb, that is something that can be a perspective that's overlaid you right now. You could have two eyeballs looking at you out your heart in an imagery wise and learn to train yourself to have two sets of vision. One that is you in the fetus in mother's womb, that's the unlimited being with unlimited potential and no contracts and limitation, and still be the physical being with the contracts and limitation, and understand that contract revocation is the separation of densities the out loud being has to manifest in this reality, to separate fear, envy, doubt, instant gratification, materialism, consumerism, and anything else that takes us away from being in the heart as a being with love without strings attached. So is there a fear of time? It's doubt. And when you're talking before about, the leapfrogging back and forth, well, you were involved in many different mystery schools. And these mystery schools, they're ancient mystery schools where they taught esoteric practices to millions of people because they knew they needed to confuse time for many millions of years, confuse it so much that our world wouldn't even be able to recognize the single signature frequency of time until some grandiose, overburdening brother system came in and forced one down our throats for another few million years. And that's exactly what happened. Roman numeral time isn't just the 1,000+ years old that we see as its expression. It has been enforced on thousands of other dimensions and time streams inside Earth's realms, and it's creating a resonant wave of destruction in its path, making sure that beings that are in the hollow Earth processes of trying to come back and be on surface Earth cannot, because they cannot find the signature frequencies of the ancestors on the surface time. So being a time holder like you are is vitally important. It gives ancestors that are in extinction opportunity to become DNA again. Whether it's the grass that's next to you, the fish, or whatever, they're here in the now. They have a source frequency of time. Otherwise, they don't. So beings like you manifest in the now, being the co-creative and the codependent healer at the same time is great and wonderful for them, because you are allowing more and more life that's been in extinction the very potential of being in incarnation.
Other than working one-on-one with people, are there ways I can be of service to more?
I think that comes down to the scale in which you want to present yourself. Being a presenter to hundreds, a dozen, that's your choice.
Okay.
You've reached this level of mastership that you need to begin to teach, so you see how good of the knowledge that you've already mastered.
Sometimes it's very daunting to be in this position, because you're never sure, are you ready? Is it time? Do I have enough knowledge? What if I get questions that I can't answer? Am I going to have egg on my face? I think you're at a stage now where you shouldn't entertain these thoughts anymore. It's time for you to step up.
I brought up more against the fears of torture and domination and control. And it's more just those little types of things that keep me from putting myself out there. But I know that that's what opens the door, so I need to get less fuzzy and more clear and empowered.
Correct. And as you said before, once you get clear, the synchronicities happen. And if you have a plan and agenda for those synchronicities, they'll make it work.
Right.
Because they're working with you, because you're creating life just by being here. They want you to be in as much abundance as possible, because you will create even more life.
That feels good.
I got a question for you. What kind of healing are you doing?
I'm a licensed acupuncturist. I still do a lot of body work. I do Qigong. I teach Qigong. I do the energy Qigong. I feel like I should be teaching a lot more Qigong. And I don't have a living ancestry lineage. I haven't been a great discipline guy, but I feel like I still have learned a lot from the people I've studied with and embody it. So, yeah.
Here's something for you to consider. Look at all the people that are in your frequency and figure out who has the genius inside them to understand how to be taught Qigong and acupuncture in the same frequency, so that they come into the understanding that Qigong, Tai Chi, all those other things are the internal processes that one can do to assist the acupuncture, acupressure, or moxibustionist. You would give people one of those easy buttons into understanding the esoterics of the human body by being able to imprint into them the natural internal flows, the positions of the energy meridians in a unique perspective as a person that's a body worker.
Right. And I certainly have invited and have come across and work with people who are open to those deeper explanations. That's been the great kind of opening I made, is I don't just treat people 3D now. I'm really open to the deeper, but I still feel like I want to do it with more people.
Well, why don't you do this then? Why don't you put out an email list to the local people in your area that you're going to do this combination Qigong acupuncture class strictly from the esoteric perspective, so people can gain mass amounts of knowledge about the physical body, and the goals that you get from the class is how to work on yourself.
Yeah, that is... You're crystallizing a great idea. Thank you. And I feel like I could also do internet radio shows on health and what you're talking about.
Oh, absolutely.
These esoteric concepts for people.
Yeah,
that would be your next scale.
Okay.
Okay. Your next scale is your choice, and it's that synchronicities that will be bringing people to your show if you have one. So if you know you're in a high spiritual cleanliness state, and you know that it's mass manifestation, put a few $100s to advertising and be surprised. Let the synchronicity dice roll.
Right.
All righty, we've got to end the call. We've got our next caller coming up. Thank you very much.
Thank you both very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
I am using the specific signature frequency of the Akashic records to do what? To connect to 20,000 other worlds where other spiritual beings who started as a heart also, because this is what we share in common with all the other species out there. Our form of birth, through the form of egg and spermal donor with inside a feminine structure, create a heart. 10,000 plus other species entangled here use the same technology of birth. This brings you up in the scale on which you are connected to other places. Allow your heart to go even stronger. That every bit of blood that is going through you is your DNA programming of the last month and a half. In human beings, the way the technology works is about every 55 to 59 days, every single blood cell in your body has been recycled and renewed through the marrow in your bones. Interesting form of technology. Now see your heart looking and scanning every piece of blood that is flowing through it. About every 45 seconds, your entire blood structure is recycled through your heart. Scan every blood cell. Nurture every blood cell. Give love to every blood cell. That is the responsibility of the I Am technology. When you find yourself in a spiritual journey where you are being drained, it is draining the blood of its life force. And this is where your knowledge and wisdom and preparedness can prevent parasitic entities from attaching to your auric body that is off traveling somewhere else, or prevent them from attaching to the physical body when the aura is off somewhere else. So it'll be your duty and disciplined responsibility to discover greater ways to embolden, empower, and enlighten your blood cells. Here are some examples. For every blood cell that flows through my beating heart, I open my sovereign spiritual self, directly connected to Earth and the dreaming mind. My blood is no longer used as karmic resolution. My blood is no longer used to create violence. My blood is no longer used as any form of fuel for any other being other than myself. Each and every blood cell has a golden tube of protection around it, preventing any vampiristic entity or remote viewing of my individual blood cells in motion. With every breath I take, I make sacred all of the oxygen that is going into my blood. I fortify all aspects of my blood with the pure pranic energy flowing through this meta teaching. You allow yourself to have that fullness of inner blood flowing through your aura of prana and chi. Fortify those imageries. It'll be your duty when we are not in this frequency to create even more. The next level here, for those of you that are wishing to see time differently, this is where you must look at your marrow. This is where you must go and look at the way marrow works. Go and explore in Wikipedia or some form of magazine that talks about anatomy and physiology of the marrow. But a few paragraphs is all you need to trigger your placebo belief. This is the next part of the meditation teaching. What is your placebo belief? Is your placebo belief real or fake? That'll be your spiritual decision as you create imprints. This is where intent goes a long way, but sacred intent goes a much further way. When you make sacred the next forms of blood you are producing, you can create radical alterations in the form of abundance around your life, with the responsibility of dealing with that energy. So for those of you who want to truly fortify themselves and are ready to take the next level of the journey, here's your technique. Visualize every single bone in your body as a skeleton. You looking at me looking at you. See your own body in reflection right in front of you. Imagine the skull, the orbits, the jaw, the teeth, the neck, the skeletal system alone. Remove the flesh, because the flesh is just light. The bone is just light also. Inside the bone marrow itself is the highest connection to your soul. This is the nipple that the soul gets into. The parasympathetic and the sympathetic has no access to the marrow to do this. This is where you massage it with your voice so that more of the milk that is the purest and highest of yourself comes into the marrow as chi, so that the marrow itself can reach into the intestinal tract, the blood system, so that it can create brand new blood cells that will have a brand new spiritual purpose added to them. It will still do all of its other functions seamlessly and flawlessly. This new function of all blood cells that is coming into existence now is so that you may let go of fraud time. Dun 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 dun. Did you think it would be that easy? Some of these things are that easy. How long will it take for you to fortify your future blood coming in? 50 to 58 days. So for those of you who are ready to take up that spiritual challenge, in the next 50 to 58 days, how many times can you honestly say that you've created a direct, guided meditation for the marrow of your bones so that you produce blood that creates a signature frequency for you to get off the nipple of fraud time? So you can experience more of the mystical in the moments of now. It's your choice at hand now. Now I'm going to further the technique so people have a bigger framework of how to think of what your future blood can do. This is the next teaching of this meditation, our 7 future generations. We have heard of our 7 past generations, those that have came before us, so we stand upon the shoulders of our ancestors so that our next ancestors can stand upon our shoulders to do what? Evolve as spirits, as a community, and a culture. So for those of you that know you are a hermit, For those of you that know you are claustrophobic, for those of you know that you have your greatest limitations, this is where you put in your blood the removal of those phobias, fears, jealousies, angers, shames, blames, and guilts. You imprint upon your future blood a healing so strong that the parasympathetic simply withers back to its natural 0-point function, which is to help you understand why you have adrenal glands. Adrenal glands are meant to keep you in the now, but every now and then the mind is an adrenal gland deep in the future. Our blood is the function that allows that to happen. You can now, in the blood, stop the adrenal glands from using your psychic skills of the future. You can disconnect yourself from the past and the future so that the blood that's in your system for the next 56 days has nothing to do with an imprint of a different part of yourself. For those of you that believe you're a targeted individual, here's your sign. Here's your sign to fortify the very blood that's within you so you cannot be remote viewed or remote influenced. You must just find the sacred neutral way to nurture your blood, to nurture your core within your bones that is that area that creates your future life. So when you see that marrow inside your mind, this is where you can use some of the most advanced forms of contract revocation for those of you that are experiencing ancestral hauntings, because those come from the blood. Now, the teaching of the 7 future generations means you must have some understanding of the past. So during your times where you're not creating guided meditations directly to the marrow of your bone, you must look at your own ancestral lineage. Even if it's 10 minutes on Ancestral.com or 10 minutes talking to some cousin or a family story, you have made it a part of your sacred journey so that the past is your teacher, the present is your creation, and the future will become your inspiration so that the present I am being can move forward without resistance from the most fundamental layers within them, our blood and marrow. The 7 future generations. Here you go. So for those of you that are in the spiritual journeying format and all those other expressions, you want to have an understanding that you are not your past, present, and future, and yet you are. This is where you put into your blood the active understanding that you want to communicate to astral beings of the 7 future generations, those that are on the positive ascension, expression, and timeline, those not entangled with the artificial sentient timeline. What, did you think it would be that easy to understand? That's the next part of teaching of the 7 future generations. Other beings are trying to outcreate you, literally you, through our taxation system, through our education system, through the way our laws intertangle with spirit. They are planning an alternate Andrew, an alternate you, an alternate him, an alternate Joe down the street, and an alternate everything. And if we give our placebo agreement to it, it will continue. In our blood, we can say no at the most fundamental layer so that artificial intelligence or artificial sentience cannot even perceive that we exist in its system, if you should choose to bring that into your blood. I challenge those out there to come up with the most sacred, neutral, poetical expressions that you can give to the marrow of your blood so that the next 56 days, nothing is planning your future but the sovereign I am self. Here we go. See that future. Empower that future. The next thing about the 7 future generations, time. How far ahead is it? In my expression, I can see 30 different versions of everyone in their crown chakra. What does that mean? 30 potentials. Some people who have been heavily abused are at 3 or 4 or 5 future potentials. For those that are super experienced in spirituality, they're at 80 or 90 or 100 potentials. When in fact we as human beings should be at tens of thousands of future potentials. This is where you put into your 7 future generations of incarnations the I am presence now. Separate of that other teaching and expression I just said, a separate form of empowerment. Do you see the correlations and connections? You are assisting the perspective of your future incarnations by living in the now. And in essence, this I am being, in communion with the blood and in communion with the marrow, and an understanding that it is going to be you in another body, can bring the mighty moment of the now, this I am presence, to bring more fluid in wisdom to 7 generations of yourself in the future. You ever had those moments where all of a sudden you're swept up with energy and the next thing you know you've had these great experiences in life? This is what happened. Some other form of yourself created a wave of energy, so from the very blood in you in the future you would follow through with a set of experiences with great power and joy behind you. Your 7 future generations need to know your story so that they can learn their story. Your 7 future generations are also travelers of time, travelers of space. How do you set up protocol? So if your 7 future generations begin to talk back to you because you are empowering the very blood that's within yourself now to have knowledge and wisdom of them. It's responsibility. This is why for many, many, many years I was very reluctant to share some of these interconsciousness teachings. Because another being from another world, and you're not channeling your future self. You're experiencing. There's a very big difference. So I want you to think about the responsibility and impress that into your blood. That the 7 future generations must bear the responsibility of the now. Must bear the responsibility that they can change other beings for the positive or the negative. And they and must all timelines, dimensions, time streams, and universes must seek to do no harm to any sentient kind. You imprint that into your 7 future generations so that we change the overall potential of the now so ascension can exist and manifest. See how strong that energy can be.
Each different bubble of reality is true.
A galactic historian is a person that looks at all the lines of dramatic karma.
Nudge, nudge.
It's the Holy Grail.
Improvised. Mysterious. It's counter psychic intelligence.
Why is DNA farming of this star cluster so important?
Because we do manifest our reality. We do create our reality.